Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about a Superflex rookie mock draft. Joe and I are going to go through 2 rounds, and this is a good time, Joe, because most of all the pro days are all finished up, so this is a great time to do a mock draft.
Those don't matter, Steve.
Hike!
All right, so Joe, you and I are going to go through our first 6 picks. Let's give some logic as to why we went ahead and did this. So I'm going to have you go first. Who were the first 6 guys that you picked?
Yeah, so at the 101, I've got Marvin Harrison Jr. At the 102, I've got Jaden Daniels. 103, Drake May. 104, Caleb Williams. 105, Malik Neighbors. And 106, Roma Dunze.
All right, so for me, I've got the 101, Caleb Williams. 102, Marvin Harrison Jr. 3, Malik Neighbors. 4, Roma Dunze. 5, Brock Bowers, and 6, Brian Thomas. So I'll talk about me first. So you have Drake May and Jaden Daniels within your top 6. And I know it's super flex, but I got to tell you, I really am not going to buy into the hype of this quarterback class. I don't know if it's all that good. Jaden Daniels, I have some concerns with. Guy isn't really able to throw it over the middle of the field. Not to mention, he also is a huge proponent of scrambling, which from a fantasy standpoint would be great. But we got to remember, if he goes to the Washington Commanders, that offensive line was a sieve. That's why Zach Howell was Zach Howell. So to me, it's like I want him to evade the pocket to possibly look downfield. But a lot of times he ran himself into trouble. We got into a lot of huge hits. Plus, I'm slightly nervous about that elbow. I know you're gonna think it's a nothing burger, but to me, I think that I'm a little bit. Sometimes he got a sleeve on it, sometimes he doesn't. It's like over time, that's on his throwing shoulder, throwing elbow. I don't know. That's kind of nerve wracking. For Drake May, I like Drake May, but he's sort of erratic, and I think might need to take a year to kind of just redshirt. But if he doesn't, people are saying he's like Josh Allen. I see it. But you got to remember, when Josh Allen came out, people were dogging the Bills for taking him and wondered if the accuracy, if his accuracy rating would be able to get improved. And he did beat the odds, but it's not like every day that happens. So to me, to just say, oh, yeah, he's going to follow Josh Allen's footsteps, I think is a mistake.
Yeah, well, I think if he does, I think he can translate to Josh Allen, and the accuracy thing just for Josh Allen, that can be fixed. Like that's not that concerning to me. Like Josh Allen, he went to the quarterback guru, he fixed his footwork. That, the footwork and everything, that has a lot to do with most of the accuracy issues. It's more so like the mechanical things. Josh Allen worked on mechanics. I feel like Drake May is a hard worker and would also be able to do some of their transition to that and work on the accuracy. I think that comes along, but you just can't teach his size and his athletic ability. And if he turns out to be Josh Allen, Josh Allen's one of the best quarterbacks. And look, this is, rookie mock draft for Dynasty. You're not just taking him for this upcoming season that he might redshirt. You're going to take him for the long haul.
I get that. My biggest problem with that, though, is I think that these receivers are blue chip players. I think
that's why I got Marvin Harrison at number 1. We see
these
quarterbacks.
Which that changed. That changed for you because you had Jaden Daniels as number 1 in our previous mock draft.
Well, that was in a mock draft. That was our rankings. But in the other mock draft, I did have Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1. So, yeah.
I just think, to me, Harrison Jr., Neighbors, Odunze, even Thomas, I think they're all blue chip players. I wouldn't want to pass them up for a gamble. I think this quarterback class could be eerie similar to the 2021 class we saw. Everybody was raving. You had Trevor Lawrence, you had Zach Wilson, you had Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. Basically 4 out of 5 busted. You only have Trevor Lawrence, and Lawrence hasn't been that good.
I feel like this class is different, though.
How do you figure?
Well, I feel like these guys have had like more success. And Zach Wilson, he came out of BYU. That was a little concerning. Mac Jones just played on an absolutely loaded Alabama team. They always have a great offensive line. It's really hard to judge Alabama quarterbacks. And besides CJ Stroud, no Ohio State quarterback's been that great. And like Mac Jones and Justin Fields, they went later in drafts too. I mean, we're talking about potentially 4 quarterbacks being taken in the first 4 picks. I know you don't believe that, but I do. So
Jay Daniels had one good year.
You can say the same thing about Joe Burrow.
Drake May had a disappointment last year.
Right. Once he lost all of his weapons and his offensive line sucked. You saw it. I don't know. I focus on 2022 with Drake May when he had a better offensive line, had more weapons around him. You saw what he can do. And I feel like going to an NFL team, he's going to be surrounded with better players than he was working with UNC last year.
Now, why do you have Caleb below May and Daniels?
Because I'm really concerned about Caleb Williams, just being from NFL standpoint. Like, I just don't know if he really is going to translate. And everyone wants to call him the next Patrick Mahomes. There's only one Patrick Mahomes in my book, and I don't think this guy is the next Patrick Mahomes. And I just like the upside that these guys bring for fantasy with the rushing and everything else. And even Patrick Mahomes himself isn't always the number one fantasy quarterback. He's number one quarterback in the NFL, but he's not the number one fantasy quarterback. And I feel like these other guys have better fantasy ceilings.
Because Daniels has the rushing upside. I mean, May can run as well. I mean, and Caleb says he doesn't like to run. But that's what he says. But
right, yeah. I mean, he's kind of scrambles. Yeah, I mean, the rushing ability of Jaden Daniels and Drake May are the reasons I have them above for fantasy reasons, just because they'll give you the passing yards and their plays with their feet.
All right, Joe, let's talk about the next half of the first round, 7 through 12. Who do you got there?
Yeah, so at the 107, I've got Brock Bowers. At the 108, I've got J.J. McCarthy. 109, Brian Thomas Jr. 110, Adonai Mitchell. At the 111, Xavier Worthy. And at the 112, Lad McConkey.
Okay. 107, I got Drake May. 108, I've got Jaden Daniels. 109, Xavier Worthy. 110, Adonai Mitchell. 111, Michael Penix. And then 112, J.J. McCarthy. All right. So we both have McCarthy here in this second part of that first round. I've got him 12. You've got him 8. Thoughts there? Did you consider putting him in the top 6?
No, I didn't consider putting him in the top 6. I feel like those guys are just a step above there. But yeah, I mean, I mean, I like JJ McCarthy. But I think, he's got really good potential from an NFL standpoint. I mean, whether or not I think he's a little bit of maybe a little bit of a riskier play, just because I feel like there's a lot of upside there. We just haven't seen it because he wasn't asked to do it at Michigan. But I think if he plays up to his potential, this is a good spot for him.
Well, and that's why I put Penix ahead of McCarthy, and because it's super. Why don't we? You liked Penix? I don't understand. You were all about him, and then the game against Michigan, you completely soured him after one game. One game?
You know why? Michigan plays an NFL style defense. It completely made him look foolish. The guy can't make the reads for the NFL. I don't think he's got it.
After one game?
Hey, the one game he played against an NFL defense. Name a good defense that played in the Pac-12 that he played in. I mean, there's defense is not
okay. What defense did Caleb Williams play that was good?
I'm not high on Caleb Williams.
How about Drake May?
Drake May?
Yeah. Who did he play against? The ACC.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, he didn't play the cream of the crop either. But either way, his offense was depleted with weapons. That's not the case for Michael Penix. I mean, he had Rome Odunze. That offense was loaded for Washington. And I'm really concerned. I mean, Michigan was the one NFL style defense, and Penix didn't look good. He wasn't good at making the reads. And for fantasy, I don't like him because he doesn't move. He's a statue, and if he doesn't get in a good offense, kind of like what Tua's got the perfect situation with Mike McDaniel right now. If Penix doesn't get in that situation, I don't think he's going to be very good for fantasy.
You were all about Stroud because he had such great accuracy. I mean, Penix has a beautiful ball.
He does, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, he's got a beautiful ball, but and he's got a big arm, but can he make the other throws? If they're not all there, like it was in the Texas game, the other game in the playoff where he absolutely looked phenomenal. And yeah, just my concern. I mean, he Michigan blitzed the crap out of him, and they had one of the best offensive line and still got to him, and he just couldn't figure it out.
So you also had Brian Thomas at 109. I was a little surprised by that. I felt like I think he's underrated. I don't know why people aren't talking about him enough, but you don't. I guess you feel otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I like Brian Thomas. I think he's obviously he's a big guy. I feel like he's had great production at LSU. I just being at this. I mean, partially it's because playing in the Superflex, and I put quarterbacks higher as well. But I felt like this was a good spot for him. The 107 I had Brock Bowers and then JJ McCarthy and Brian Thomas here. So
now, what made you put AD Mitchell ahead of Xavier Worthy?
I have my concerns with Xavier Worthy. He obviously broke the combine record, ran it into 4.21 there, and got everyone enamored with that. But I have my concerns. I feel like Adonai Mitchell is just he's 6'2", 205. He also, he ran pretty fast as well at 4.34. So I think he's right there. I just I don't know. I feel like he's got a little more of a skill set at the wide receiver from a route running standpoint and everything. So I give him a slight edge. I got him one ranking spot at one pick apart here.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't want people want you compare to him to Zach. Who am I thinking about? John Ross.
Yeah.
For some reason I was thinking of Zach Moss. I don't know why that name came to mind. But if you look at him, Adonai Mitchell really didn't do anything until this past season. He had 55 catches for 845 yards and 11 touchdowns. Okay. So, before that, 2022, he had 9 catches for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. And in 2021, he had 29 catches for 426 yards and 4 touchdowns. Worthy, over the past 3 years, most recent season, 75 catches, over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. 2022, 60 catches, 760 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And then in 2021, 62 catches for 981 and 12 touchdowns. This guy's been very productive in college. I know people are like, I almost feel like the 40 time, and this is going to sound crazy, I almost think it's kind of hurt him because people think that, he's just a speed guy. But to me, if you look at the production he's had in Texas plus the speed, this is not John Ross 2.0.
Yeah, I think the other part, he's 5'11", 165. They think he's just not very big. I just like Mitchell's,
That's baloney. That's absolutely baloney. You think that Tank Dell is so great, and Tank Dell is smaller than this guy.
Yeah, Tank Dell is.
Okay, so why? But you have no problem with Tank Dell's size, so why are you having a problem with Xavier Worthy's size?
I think part of it is Tank Dell wasn't really on my radar until the season started. So I feel like I got to see it, and I'm, look, until I see it, I feel like Xavier Worthy that'll be somewhat of a concern for me. And look, Tank Dell also got hurt, but you're also saying I got Adonai Mitchell one spot ahead of the guy. It's not like I had Mitchell way ahead of him.
Speaking of another guy, Lab McConkey, though. McConkey's a small guy too. Same size at 186. He's pretty small too.
Yeah, but he's still got 20 pounds on your guy Xavier Worthy there. The thing with Lad McConkey though is just he's so savvy and he's such a great route runner. That's why I got him at the end of the first round over some of the other wide receivers. the ability to get open in the NFL is a really good skill to have. And what he was doing in the Senior Bowl, just creating all that separation, was really incredible to me. So, because of that, regardless of the size, that I got him there.
All right, let's go over to the second round, Joe. Who do you have at your first 6 picks?
All right. At the 201, I've got Troy Franklin. At the 202, Jonathan Brooks. 203, Keon Coleman. 204, Blake Corum. 205, Trey Benson. And at the 206, Bo Nix.
Okay. All right, 201, I've got Lad McConkey. 202, Malachi Corley. 203, Trey Benson. 204, Xavier Legette. 205, Blake Corum. And 206, Ricky Pearsall. Based on these picks, Joe, makes me think that you're starting to believe that Bo Nix is going to be a Denver Bronco.
Why do you say that?
Well, because he wasn't even in your top 24 rankings last time, and now he's slipped in there, so something must have changed, and it looks like Nix may be going to the Broncos. I don't know if that had anything to do with this increase.
No, not really. That didn't have anything to do with it. He was close to being in my top 24 before. And I mean, this is I don't know. I feel like I had a different mindset when I'm actually going to try to make these picks for the mock drafts. I felt a little differently than just trying to slap together rankings.
Interesting. Yeah, I know probably some. So there's some names. One thing I will make a mention of. Interesting. You and I both did not have any running backs in the top 12 in the first round. And I had my first running back come off the board at 203. You had the first running back come off at 202. Do you feel like that everyone wants to pile on and say this running class isn't that good? Do you think that we're kind of just going with the crowd? Do you think it's actually better than what people are saying about it?
I think it potentially is better than what they're saying. I think it gets a bad rap because I feel like there's not an elite name like a Bijan Robinson last year or like a Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft, but there's still really talented running backs here. And as far as like dynasty strategy goes, I'd prefer to take like quarterbacks or wide receivers in the first round that are going to give you that kind of longevity. But I think, second round is perfectly fine to, target a running back.
I do think once these landing spots come into play, I do think that's going to
help.
change things pretty drastically because when you have a running back, whichever one of these guys gets drafted by the Cowboys, and they're the guy, they might get pulled up into the first round.
Definitely, I think that definitely is part of it. Just the wide receivers is just so easy to translate over from college to the NFL, and regardless of where some of these guys go, their talent's just going to excel no matter what. Where running backs can be different.
Yeah, one of the guys I really like in this class is Malachi Corley. I think he's fell under the radar because he wasn't able to perform in the combine. He performed at his pro day, did well at his pro day. But
who doesn't do well at a pro day?
Joe, he ran the 40. He ran a good 40. We weren't able to see that over at the combine because he was, I can't remember if he was injured or he elected not to. I think he might have been injury related. But nevertheless, he's a guy he calls himself the Yak King, I think is what they call him. But he, to me, is like a Deebo Samuel type clone. I mean, this guy is very similar. And he was extremely productive at Western Kentucky. I think this guy is flying way under the radar. And I could see him getting drafted way earlier than people expect come the NFL draft year in less than a month.
Interesting.
Do you disagree?
I like him. I just don't like him as much as you do, I guess.
I mean, you can't knock his production. I mean, his production in college is off the charts.
Yeah, no, definitely can't knock it.
So, but you got Keon Coleman. I've been spooked by Coleman and Franklin. I haven't talked about him yet, but I've been spooked by him because I think that I read into the athleticism stuff more than you do. I think that they both performed very poorly at the combine, and I think
doesn't mean anything.
Coleman can't separate. And I don't like receivers who can't separate. You could make the argument that Leggett is a bigger bodied guy as well, but I mean, even for his size, I think that he's performed very well. I do not like guys who can't separate. That scares me. So, and Franklin, honestly, looks to me, again, I was very disappointed with what he was able to do. These landing spots could change how these guys go, but to me, Franklin's been a disappointment.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, these guys can have bad combines and do whatever. I really don't care about that. I could care less about the pro days as well with the scripted things, and the guys are in freaking shorts. Of course, quarterbacks can throw it well when it's all scripted and nobody's in pads and everyone's just in t-shirt and shorts running around, So I don't really put much stock into that. I focus on the production and everything else, and what you see on the field. I get that guys can't separate, with that being a concern with Keon Coleman, but he's a really great contested catch it guy. So, and he goes up and gets the ball, and he's done it time and time again, especially with Florida State, that I'm not really concerned about that.
Another guy I really like is Ricky Pearsall. Guy's hands are unbelievable. I mean, you saw that one-handed catch he made in Florida. That's like his marquee, highlight reel.
No
catch.
surprise. You like this guy's flash because he made a one-handed catch.
Joe, he's got great route running and he's got awesome hands. I don't know why you don't like this guy. I think this guy is going to be. To me, he shows more excitement to me than Keon Coleman and Troy Franklin.
Right. Keyword you said, excitement. That doesn't mean anything. Excitement's for the fans. That doesn't help you. As far as his production, I mean, big whoop. The guy can make a one-handed catch. The gloves are so sticky that these guys use. Pretty much anybody can do it.
All right. How about the running backs, Joe? You decided to go Brooks, which we didn't see much of. Then you went, surprisingly, Corum, your Michigan man, then Benson. What made you kind of go in that order for the running backs? I went Benson, then Corum, and that's it so far.
Yeah, it's, between these three guys, it's kind of tough. I just like what Jonathan Brooks was able to do with Texas this past year, and he's able to catch the ball. He caught 25 passes, and he's showing out like he could be a 3-down back. That's why kind of that aspect of it kind of gave him a slight edge for me.
I don't know. I hear what you're saying with him. I think he's getting a little too much hype.
With that being said, I mean, I really like what I've seen out of, obviously Blake Corum. I'm a Michigan fan. Like Blake Corum, what he does, he's just great. He's got the vision, and his ability to cut on a dime is really special. That's what he brings. And then Trey Benson, I mean, I've been really impressed with him from Florida State.
Me too.
Physical runner, able to break the tackles as well. So, I mean, it's like splitting hairs, I think, between these three guys.
All right, let's round it out. What do you got for your remaining picks in the second round?
Yeah, so at the 207, I've got Michael Penix. At the 208, Roman Wilson. 209, Braylon Allen. 210, Jalen Wright. 211, Malachi Corley. And at the 212, Devontae Walker.
Nice to hear that you've got Corley in there, Joe. Good work. All right, so I've got 207. I've got Troy Franklin. 208, Keon Coleman. 209, Jalen Wright. 210, Jonathan Cooper. 211, Roman Wilson. And to finish it out, 212, Bo Nix. So interesting. You've got Braylon Allen and Devontae Walker, two guys I do not have in my first two rounds of the draft. What made you put those guys in? I can understand Walker. I don't understand Allen. He's a guy I've soured on big time. I think, you've seen he's got brick hands from what I can see. He really wasn't able to show any receiving ability. People think he's Jonathan Taylor 2.0 because, it just so happens they both play at the same college. And Wisconsin running backs have had a good pedigree in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. But to me, he's a guy that he was being raved about as when they do hey, we're going to do the 2025 rookie draft class. When they were talking about the 2024 one a year ago, they were talking Braylon Allen as like a top, I'd say top 3-4 pick last year. I think he's dive bombed.
Yeah, he definitely is dive bombed. I mean, he's a guy that I've like you, I'd kind of soured on as well, but I think I was possibly too negative. The guy that, I think his size is still going to play at the NFL level. Sitting at 6'1", 235 pounds. And, he just turned 20 earlier this year as well. I just think, at that size, I think it'll play in the NFL. And to me, he's still an NFL style running back. I mean, to your point, he doesn't, pass catching is limited, like you said, but Jonathan Taylor is fine with Jonathan Taylor is fine for fantasy as well. And he doesn't really bring that pass catching either.
Now, how about Jalen Wright? Why did you have him after Braylon Allen? Obviously, he was a combine darling, so maybe you don't care about that. But I mean, I would imagine. But it's probably a reason why you have him where you have him was because of how much speed he shows.
Yeah, I mean the fact that he's 210 pounds and was able to run a 4.38 40, also was in the 98th percentile for his raw athletic score. Even had a 6.2 yard per carry average as well. I mean, he's been very impressive. But yeah, I just ranked Braylon Allen a little higher, one spot.
How about Devontae Walker? I mean, a guy who I think has shown a lot of talent at North Carolina. Probably, what would you say was the best option for Drake May?
Definitely. And I feel like this guy's been just too beat up from the Senior Bowl perspective.
Well, he was horrible there. I mean, I don't know how. So you don't take that into account either?
Not that I didn't take it into account. I just feel like it's being overblown. I know he didn't have a good showing on the Senior Bowl, and it caused some guys to rise, and obviously he's kind of fallen, but I still think this guy's an explosive athlete. He's still got that long speed. He creates separation with it because he was getting open in the Senior Bowl. He just wasn't hanging on to the ball. But over his career at UNC, that his dropping of the balls wasn't a problem. So I think maybe just he put a lot of pressure on himself possibly during the Senior Bowl, got some of the drops. I think he cleans that up, and if he does, he's still an explosive athlete with acceleration and speed as well.
Yeah, I think a guy that you and I both like is Roman Wilson. Yeah, I think he wasn't able to showcase his full potential because the Michigan offense was not designed to be wide receiver centric. But I think that he will do very well in the NFL. I mean, he's a smaller guy, but I think more and more of those guys are being successful. So I think it'll be really interesting to see where he ends up landing. And I'm glad you joined me with Bo Nix because I had him last time. I think although I'm not the biggest Knicks fan, all indication looks like he's going to be at least a second round pick, maybe even a first round pick. I think that'd be a mistake, but it sounds like he's going to have the draft capital. And to me, you got to look at all the puzzle pieces, right? You are and everyone has their own different philosophy. So, I mean, this is yours. But you've got the combine, you've got the athletic testing, you've got the pro days, you've got the actual stats, you've got the film on paper, and you've got the draft capital and the landing spot. We can't even talk about draft capital and landing spot right now. I think those are ultimately some of the most important. Landing spot, I know I weigh very heavily. I know you do as well.
Yeah, I do weigh it heavily. Be curious where he goes. But, Bo Nix, he's an athletic guy. He brings that rushing upside as well. A lot of people think he's interesting enough. People have kind of compared him to Justin Herbert, I feel like.
Just because they played at Oregon?
I don't know if it's just that.
Oregon? And they both have long hair?
I think it's partially just because they have the ability to run a little bit, but not that necessarily they show it off. But I guess maybe it is the fact that they both played at Oregon.
Well, that does it for our Superflex mock draft. We went through 2 rounds. Coming up next week, we've got some guests coming on and talking about the best landing spots. We talked about how landing spots are so important. Well, we're going to say which ones that we would like the best for some of these players. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.